What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Get Buck Breeders' Cup edition. Thank you for everybody that's tuning in. We got an awesome show today. I get to be joined by my normal Get Bucks co-host. That's Jackson Muniz. Jackson, what's going on? Long time no see.
Yeah, it's been a while, man. I'm excited for this.
Absolutely.
For real, it should be fun. We have some good guests, and Breeders' Cup is coming up very, very fast.
It is. It's coming up really quick. Tonight, we get to go over the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile as well. We're covering 2 races, and we have 3 amazing guests, the first of which I get to work with up at Santa Anita, expert handicapper, friend of Frank Scottoni, who is all of our mutual buddies. Yeah. That is Jason Avila. Jason, how's it going?
Going good, guys. How you doing?
Doing well. Got to say, love everything except for the Dodger hat you got going on.
Sorry about your Padres.
Yes, that's all right. You know, it happens. Full disclosure, I'm probably not going to watch a single pitch of the World Series. I can't. The Dodgers and the Yankees, probably my least 2 favorite teams, but something I know we can all find common ground on is we got the Breeders' Cup coming up, and that is just day after day of excellent, excellent racing.
Heck yeah, I'm super excited, and thank you guys for having me. You're getting me pumped up a little bit early. I usually don't start doing work just quite yet because I like to see who's entered and the draw and all that kind of stuff. But I got excited looking at this stuff for the show. So thanks for having me, and let's try to pick some winners.
Absolutely. Yeah. We got, I think the main draw or the entire draw is on the 28th, which should be, I think it's next Monday, if I'm doing my math right.
Next Monday
about 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. We'll be live. Jackson and I will be doing our reactions to the post position draws. And then we have another show following that one up. But today, as I mentioned, we get to talk about the Juvenile Fillies and the Juvenile. To start us off, pardon the spreadsheet. It's, a little here and there, but we got the full field here in terms of probables and odds presented by David Aragona from DRF. So talking about a good handful of horses today. But to start us off, I got to take this and I got to go find a new screen to share. We're starting with Quick Kick, I believe, in the Juvenile Fillies. Let me find the correct window here. Or rather, let's start with American Bikini, Jason. That was a horse you wanted to talk about. Japan runner that's expected to ship over. What did you like here?
Yeah, so American Bikini, the Japanese runners have been competitive all over the world on all of the big days. They're doing it right. They're doing everything right, and it's showing in their results. And this horse is from here. Actually, it's an American bred. They bought it out here, but I watched these races. I found them online, did a little bit of searching, and this filly, she's first time out. She needed the race. It was very obvious. She was running against primarily colts, and then she didn't run bad. But then second time out, she came back and she looked really, really good. She took the lead. She controlled the pace, and I mean, she did it. She did it impressively. It was only going about five furlongs. Then they stretch her out third time out to 7 furlongs, and she controlled the pace again. I like that she idled mid-race. The jockey was able to kind of have her calm down. She followed his lead, and then she kicked clear. She did get a little bit tired late. It seemed like she wasn't drawing away, but she still was impressive. And it seems to me like this fourth race, if she travels well, she handles Del Mar and all that stuff, that we could see another progression forward. And I don't know, I didn't see her in the morning line that you posted before you pulled it down, but I'd imagine she's going to be a price. And I'm going to take a shot against the likely favorite in this race for a couple of reasons I'll mention later. But yeah, I think American Bikini is definitely one to watch. She should, like I said, she should be able to track. I think there's going to be speed in the race. So yeah, we'll see how they do, how the Japanese do in the Juvenile Fillies with American Bikini.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe we have her on there. I think David Aragona had her around 8-1 on the morning line, which is a nice price. Could be a horse that gets forgotten about. You brought up a great point. The Japanese runners coming over are exceptional. They're coming over in droves. I think we're expecting 19 to ship over. We saw the last time they came to Del Mar in 2021. They had a lot of success with Marsh Lorraine. And then Jackson or Jason, please remind me, who was the one that won the turf?
Love's Only You.
Thank you. Love's
That's
Only
it.
You. That was the one.
If
And they
they're
had
winning
a
with 75 to 1 shots or whatever the heck she was, imagine what they're going to do with horses that have a legit chance. And I don't know how you feel about this race, Jason, but I don't think any of the American horses are like spectacular or anything. So I haven't done much research on this horse yet, but she's definitely one I'm going to be interested in, depending on what I end up hearing about her. Because
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think, like I said, immersive is going to most likely be the favorite, and I am not. I mean, she's good, but she's going to face some challenges
yeah,
in the Breeders' Cup that she's never had. So, with these fillies, these young fillies, they can improve by leaps and bounds from one race to another when they're young like this. So, yeah, hopefully, I'm price shopping. Hopefully, we can get a price in this race. But yeah.
this would definitely be the race to find a price. We're just talking about Immersive, who's probably going to be your morning line favorite in here, if I had to guess. But coming off of a win in the Grade 1 Darley Alcibiades, this runner is 3 for 3 already with 2 Grade 1 wins. The win in the spinaway coming over the slop at Saratoga, got the fast main track at Keeneland, and then you got to imagine we're going to be fast at Del Mar because we're nothing but 65, 75, and sunny year round. So this horse can run on anything. Bred by Godolphin, owned by Godolphin, trained by Brad Cox, ridden by Manny Franco. This horse is definitely going to be, a force to be reckoned with. Has already had the two-turn experience. But certainly beatable because those 2-year-olds can really jump up from start 1 to start 2.
Yeah, and I think the way that I see her getting beat in the Breeders' Cup is she's going to be facing some serious pace. That's not. I don't think they're all going to back up. In the Alcibiades, the 2 pace setters, they folded and they were up the track. So I don't think that's going to happen in the Breeders' Cup. So we'll see. And in the Alcibiades, she finished good, but I thought I actually liked the horse that ran second, Quick Kick, who has excuses in the Alcibiades. So she's going to have to take a step forward, and at a short price, I'm gambling against her.
Well, this is certainly a gambler's game, and that's what I love. And you mentioned Quick Kick. I was trying to pull this one up here. I know it's a one you wanted to talk about. Jackson, you and I did a show covering this card as well, and we picked Quick Kick either on top or second in our picks leading into this. We thought she had a great chance. Trained by Tom Amos. Again, you mentioned coming out of a second, had some trouble. So safe to say this is a horse you want to bet back in the Juvenile Fillies, Jason?
Yeah, I actually bet her last time out, and she got squeezed at the start. She didn't have a great trip. She was sitting 3-4 wide the whole way around. I think she could have regressed a little bit off of her second race because I do have her running a really big race second time out. So, like I said, I think she can, at a price, definitely turn the tables on Immersive. I don't know if she's good enough to beat some of my top pick in here, who I really love. But I'm definitely coming back and taking another shot with her. She deserves another shot for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Quick Kick was excellent in that last race. Just ran into a little bit of trouble. And for those 2-year-olds, that can definitely make all the difference with them still gaining experience race to race. I'm going to take a shot in the dark. I know it's one of the other horses that you texted me saying you wanted to talk about. So hopefully I'm right, but I'm going to throw this horse up on the screen now. Maybe your top choice, West Coast horse, Vodka with a Twist. Would that be who we're looking at?
Yep,
if
that's
the results want to load here, I'll let the technology kind of do its thing for the time being. But Vodka with a Twist has run, I want to say, has 4 career starts. Raced really well out at Churchill, I believe in the second career race, if I'm not mistaken. Came back out to Del Mar, ran a close second behind Tenma. And yeah, comes into this Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. Gonna be a good price. I will check what the odds are going to be here in just a second, but we've loaded a little bit here. So yeah, came in second in the debutante. What attracted you to this one here, Jason?
Yeah, so I saw 20-1 on Aragona's morning line that you posted. So I love that. That's great. First time out, actually, I take that back. A second time out when she won, she beat LaCara, who I don't know if LaCara is going to run or not. I would assume she is if everything's okay. But LaCara's got to be one of the top picks in here, one of the favorites. The key with Vodka with the Twist is I don't think she's a sprinter. I think she wants to go route of ground, and I think Phil D'Amato has set her up for that. Last time out, she made an early move. She was wide. She battled back late. She got passed by Tenma, but she battled back, and I think it's hard to tell with the camera angle at Del Mar, but I think she would have came back and beat her if there was any more ground left in the race. So I think she's going to peak in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. I think she's going to get a great trip in this race. She acts rowdy. She's got tactical speed. She's working with a horse who I also think is really good. Kind of another side note, but there's a filly named Mancuso for Phil D'Amato who's won already, and I think she's something special. So I'm taking a shot with Vodka with the Twist, and I'd be really happy with 20-1 or anything close to that on her.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 20-1 is what Aragona has the morning line set for, or the rough morning line that is for Vodka with a Twist. Lacara is in here at 15-1, which is surprisingly high given the races this filly has run in her short career. But with, horses like we talked about, Immersive with American Bikini coming over from Japan, Non-Compliant and Nooney, both trained by Bob Baffert. You have a number of ones that are probably going to take a decent amount of money here before, horses like Lacara and Vodka with a Twist, certainly a big chance to get forgotten about on the tote board, and a horse that could certainly blow things up, because I think that horse has a lot of potential.
And she made the first move last time. I mean, they flew. I think there was like 3 across the track, and she went like a 3/8 pole, took the lead, and then, like you said, she battled back all the way to the wire against that Baffert runner. So, but she's not impossible in here at all, I don't think.
Yeah, it's early still. The post position draw is a big deal, and the way this stuff shakes out in the next 10 days or so, we'll see it a little bit clearer. But yeah, I mean, I'd be thrilled with anything close to 20-1, and I think this race is ripe for a price. So we'll see if we can get lucky.
Where would you want to see her draw ideally?
I would say probably in the middle of the field.
Yeah.
I don't really want to see her outside, and I don't want to see her inside. Okay. She's somewhere, I'd say 4 to 6, 4 to 7 would be probably perfect.
There you go. I like it. Do you know, Ryan, how many horses they're expecting? It's the
on our probables list. It's also including a horse, Otomena Shacho from Japan as well. So who knows? But we got, let's say 4, 8, 12. Looks like 13 are expected. I know the max in the field can be 12. So we're certainly hoping for a full field of 12, but most likely 10 is probably going to be the reasonable number. With there's always a couple who maybe aren't able to go for one reason or another. So should be 10 in the gate, and I agree. I think 4 to 6 would be a good spot for that filly Vodka with a Twist. She's gotten experience getting dirt in her face, which I think is important for those 2-year-olds, because a lot of them don't, including a horse I wanted to talk about real quick, and that is Zidane-owned, Bob Baffert-trained Nooney, who obviously disappointed in those first couple races sprinting, but this horse got out to 2 turns for the first time in the Oakleaf and ran pretty well. Certainly improved on the 5th in the debutante. Came in first in the Sorrento, but really didn't face much that day in the grade 3 earlier on in the meet. But I really love that 2-turn debut at Santa Anita. Went forward, which is where this horse wants to be, but this horse clearly has some talent. Just kind of has to grow up and, string them together. Didn't really learn to rate too much, so I think this horse really just has one way of going. So I think this horse drawing 1 through 3 wouldn't be a problem, because I think that's just going to emphasize the intentions that the jockey's going to need to have. But really, I think this horse could draw anywhere. 12-1 on the projected morning line, again presented by DRF over with David Aragona. But I think Nooney's got maybe a bit of a shot at one of those Bafferts that kind of gets forgotten about.
Nooney's fast. Nooney is fast. I'm not sold. I'm not sold on her chances. I think if Baffert wins it, I think it might be one of his other horses. I just visually, Nooney in that last race, that 2-turn race, and even in the 7 furlong race, I think the one that Tenma and Vodka with a Twist beat her in there. She just doesn't look good late to me. She doesn't look like a router. She's not really bred to be a router. I know she was super fast and brought a lot of money at the 2-year-old sale, but look, at a big price, maybe, but I couldn't see playing her at anything less than maybe 10 or 15, probably 15 to 1. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I wouldn't take less than double-digit odds on this filly, but I think there is a chance this horse gets away at a pretty big price. And yeah, she may be bred a little more, sprint side, but I think there's definitely a chance for improvement. And you never really know as these horses keep growing up. Another Baffert to talk about, though, is non-compliant for the Fillies. This one 2 for 2, debuted, maiden race sprinting, and then immediately stretched out in the Oakleaf, and again, one beat Nooney. That's a grade 2 coming in here. This is definitely a horse to be reckoned, or force to be reckoned with, rather.
Yeah, I think this is probably my favorite Baffert horse in this race. If I was going to take one, she only beat a 6-horse field in the Oakleaf, but the way she did it, it was her second start. She had every reason to not handle it, or not take a step forward. She was wide. She beat both Nooney and Tenma. She's going to need another step forward, and it's not out of the question with Baffert. And I think she should be a good price too. I think, and Baffert knows what he has. So if he puts this horse in the race, I would expect a step forward. Whether it's a big enough step to beat some of the heavier hitters, that remains to be seen.
Absolutely agree with that one. But Baffert should have a 2-3-headed monster with non-compliant Tenma and Nooney in here. So kind of a little bit of, has them placed all over. Non-compliant has shown the ability to rate in only 2 starts. Nooney, as we said, is all speeds going straight to the front. And then Tenma, an interesting kind of off the pace type that you don't typically see from the Baffert barn. But that's a brief but quick look at the juvenile fillies for the Breeders' Cup on Friday. Moving on to the Breeders' Cup juvenile here. Again, we have the field morning lines best we can here. We have your morning line favorite going to be East Avenue, trained by Brendan Walsh, owned by Godolphin, and ridden by Tyler Gaffleone. We have the morning line set at a rough 5-2 here. What are your thoughts on East Avenue in here, Jason?
East Avenue looks like a beast. I mean, the horse is bred blue blood, Godolphin horse, both starts. I mean, the horse he's beautiful. He looks good. He's fast. The question is, he hasn't had any adversity. I mean, the first time out, it was a maiden race, but last time out he faced Ferocious. I'm sorry. Ferocious.
It's all good.
And Ferocious is a runner. And I know Ferocious, or I can't even. Ferocious is a runner, and he has excuses in the last race, but East Avenue handled him. So, he gets the acid test here. He's going to be a short price. I could see him improving again and making short work of the field, but the gambler in me, there's more than a few horses in here that I think have a chance if he, for whatever reason, if he doesn't handle the adversity that he's going to have to face early, and he doesn't move forward. There's a few in here that I think are really, really good, and all it's going to take is one of them to jump forward to maybe give him a run for his money. But yeah, he looks really, really good. His races have been fast. Crosses the T's and checks all the boxes. So yeah, he's going to be one to beat. He's the one to beat for sure.
Definitely the one to beat, but I think, again, Breeders' Cup shows time and again, especially with these juvenile races, horses are capable of just taking that next step up. You mentioned a great point where East Avenue hasn't had to face a lot of adversity. His maiden race doesn't look too live. Jackson, you, I, and Noah just covered the Keeneland Late Pick 5, where there's a runner coming out of there trained by, I'm blanking, but ridden by Luis Saez coming out of there that you and I kind of both picked. in or around. That was one of my top picks. But again, that race just doesn't look super live. So you got to wonder, what East Avenue faced. But then you mentioned in the Breeders' Futurity at Keeneland, going the 2 turns for the first time, just really handled that field, but didn't have much in the way of issues or anything to really overcome. That's certainly not guaranteed here. This one could come down to, might be a stronger play against if this horse draws, post 1 through 3. Horse I like. Oh yeah.
It was Eric Foster, in case anyone cares. But
Eric Foster, thank you.
Out of that maiden race,
he's running on Wednesday. Yes. But Bill did come back to win at Keeneland, and I think he got a pretty solid number. So that's at least one horse has done okay.
Shout out Noah Maher for the tip on that horse.
Yeah.
A horse that I know you're interested in, Jason, and I am too, is Jonathan's Way, trained by Phil Bauer, owned by Rigney Racing. This horse is one that could get away at a bit of a price. What were your thoughts here?
Yeah, I like Jonathan's Way. I mean, he's done absolutely nothing wrong. He's been really impressive, both of his races, and he's done it. He's done it 2 different ways. He came from behind in his first start, and then he went to the front, in his second start. The Vacoma babies have been lights out. I definitely think this is East Avenue is going to have his running shoes on to beat this guy. I would assume Rosario is going to ride this horse. I didn't do any research. I don't know if he is or not. I don't think Rosario's riding as to his capabilities. I don't think he has been. So, the draw is going to be huge on this race. And it could shift my opinion one way or the other, but Jonathan's Way is very, very good. And he has every right to be in the mix in this one and give East Avenue a run for his money for sure.
Absolutely. Jackson, your thoughts?
I'm just excited for this race. I mean, I think there's 5 or 6 American horses that all have pretty solid cases. And then that doesn't even include what's coming up from Japan. I think they have a couple too. So, it's all going to depend on the trip, and it's going to depend on the draw. Like Jason said, they all have a pretty similar style. I think they all want to be pretty forward, except for Chancer. But as we've seen, this Del Mar track isn't very kind of the style he has. So it's a fascinating race. I'm very curious to see how they bet it.
I am as well. We mentioned the Japanese runners. They don't have any, real looks like precocious or, high quality ones coming over necessarily for this one. This is the profile for Shin Forever, or it's Shin Believe in some places. So not too sure on the name. But this horse coming out of 4th in the Saudi Arabia Royal Cup, which is a Group 3 over in Tokyo, Japan. Obviously had the debut win, came out, finished 9th next in the stakes, could come over. Kind of looks like a bit of a fuzzy, obviously 20-1 at the morning line, which is a little bit, up there. Could just be a horse they're sending over. But you really never know with these Japanese runners, because they come over with intention. They come over to be aggressive, and they come over to win. They're not just going to kind of run 2 left turns around the track and just, see how it goes. They're going to give their horse the best chance to win. Horse that comes to mind would be earlier on Derby Day was, I think it's T.O. St. Denis, came in second in a great run. Going Pat Day Mile, maybe not that one. I forget what race it was, but just sent him out. They went like 46 to the half, and he held on for second. So something like that, where they come over, they show their intention, they're being aggressive. So did either of you have thoughts on the Japanese runner here, Shin Believe?
I watched. I have it as Shin Believe. I watched the race, that horse's race. Didn't have any speed really, which concerns me. Did close some late, but I just didn't. I had a hard time making a case for him to really challenge for the top spots. And then the other one that I think is a probable for the race is Ikoro Azel, and that horse actually second time out ran in the same race that American Bikini ran in and finished 5th. So, yeah, like I said, I'm a big fan of the Japanese horses because I think they're competing everywhere. But I'll probably take a stand against these 2 just based on the replays. But, I don't know. I've got to dig a little deeper and see if there's any speed figures or anything else that can kind of maybe glean some more information on it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Sometimes you really got to dig deep into those, Japanese runners, those European runners. You really got to find, find some hidden form, find those replays, get after what you need to get after, because that really is going to depend on a lot. Last horse I want to talk about here with you, Jason, is Gaming for Bob Baffert. Not entirely sure why it says this horse finished 4th in the Cleburne Breeders' Futurity, because that was over at Keeneland, and this horse did not run in that. Last ran at Del Mar in the Del Mar Futurity. Jackson, you and I were there for that race. We don't need to talk about it. We let Pratt get away from us at 7-2, and we've been kicking ourselves ever since.
All week I said Gaming cannot lose the race.
Yeah,
and then we get to the paddock, and Ryan says, "Oh my God, Citizen Bull is the best looking horse I've ever seen in the paddock." And I'm like, "Okay,
hey, you agreed with me, Ryan. You agreed with me. I was all Brother Tony in that race, and it didn't work well for either of us. So that is part of life. But Jason, what were your thoughts here on Gaming for Bob Baffert? We have 8-1 on the projected morning line.
Don't feel bad, guys. I found a way to mess that race up too. That last win by Gaming. This guy, I think, kind of like non-compliant for Baffert. You can tell this horse is talented, and he's bringing this horse along. Third start out, he's going to throw him in the Juvenile. He's improved from his first to his second start. I think he's tactical. He really, if you watch I watched his races a few times over, and he's very responsive to the rider. And I think that's going to be key. Numbers wise, he's maybe a cut below some of these others, like East Avenue and Jonathan's Way, maybe even Chancer McPatrick. But if he listens and he has the mind that he appears to have, that could be a huge asset in this race, especially we talked about what happens with the draw, what happens with the pace. I think he's obviously going to need to improve, but I do like what I see with him. If there's a lot of speed in the race, which it appears there is, I think he could be sitting in a really good spot. And if he does improve a little bit, he could be right there and upset it.
I definitely agree. Yeah, Gaming responded really well first time with Flavian Pratt last time out in that Del Mar Futurity. Obviously, got away at 7-2 that day with Citizen Bull and Getaway Car taking most of the money for the two Bafferts. I believe he had 4 in there. Little Bob Baffert Invitational, as it turns out. But coming out of that race, training up into the Breeders' Cup Juvenile is something obviously he's really strong. He has really strong numbers at doing. So that is a great point on Gaming there by you, Jason. So I'm looking forward to it. We have 8-1 on the projected morning line, and that would be an absolute gift for Gaming, especially with that jockey Flavian Pratt in the saddle.
Absolutely. I think the race goes through East Avenue, like I mentioned earlier, but it's no slam dunk. Definitely they've got to travel over here, and the track. Gaming's run over Del Mar. He likes the track, so there's obstacles to overcome for the favorites. Should be a good race. Exciting. I'm excited about it.
Absolutely, me too. Do you have a parting shot for maybe most confident winner between these two races, if you had to pick one?
I'm gonna go with Vodka with a Twist.
I love it.
I love that filly. Yeah, I love that filly. I think, and like I said, I honestly don't think she's gonna be 20-1. I mean, I hope she is. But I love her. I love the way she's coming up to the race, the way, she looks like she wants to go around the ground. It seems like, Phil D's kind of planned this, and she likes the track. Those races, they don't look bad on paper, but they don't look great. And with everybody else in the race, you're going to get a good price. And I think she's going to be right there. So Vodka with a Twist. And then if she wins, we'll be having some vodkas with some twists.
I like it.
Absolutely. I love it. Jason, can't thank you enough for joining us today. Talk a little Breeders' Cup baby day on Friday. Really appreciate the time, and love the insight, love the analysis.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, guys. Good luck, and hopefully see you soon.
Absolutely. I'll see you. All right. Great words from Jason there. Talking Breeders' Cup.
20-1 he gave out.
20-1 is the most confident. That is.
I love it.
Absolutely. And that horse definitely has a shot to get away with Phil D'Amato. And I believe Fresu is the named rider, at least for now. But next guest we have coming on, we're talking the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies, and we're talking the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, but we get a fun little twist this time because the next guest here, he goes by Benny Southstreet. You may know him. What's going on, Benny? How's it going?
Hey, guys. How are you? Good to be with you both.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, excited to have you on because, as I mentioned, we're going to be talking Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. We're going to be talking Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and we get to use a really cool tool run by you. That is Trip Notes. So www.tripnotepros.com. Excellent content. You got, upgrades. You have downgrades. We're going to take a look here in just a minute. But Benny, how are you doing today?
Everything's awesome. I'm prepping for my pool league. I just joined a pool league, so I'm going to go shoot some 8-ball.
Nice.
In a little while, so fired up for that. It's my new hobby. So, and I'm pretty compulsive with my hobbies. So, needless to say, I've gotten good in the last 6 months.
There we go. Love to see it. That's hard work, dedication. That's you could call it compulsive, you could call it dedication. I prefer to call it dedication. So,
well, I was an amazing drinker for a long time, but I quit doing that, and I'm like, man, no adult beverages. What am I gonna do? So I got to find a new hobby that I can do at night because my days are spent working. So I was like, yeah, I started shooting pool. And it's been fun. Been a lot of fun. So I'm undefeated. Knock on wood. I'm 6-0. I play in a league, an APA league. So if anybody wants to play 100 a ball, just hit me up on Twitter. We can go to the shanty, and we can gamble a little outside of the horse racing oval.
There we go. I love it. Inside the horse racing oval, you have a wonderful tool, Trip Note Pros, that we're going to get to take a look at here. The first one for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies that we'll talk about is going to be non-compliant, trained by Bob Baffert. You can see here, I'll try and get us a little bit of a closer look. Might have gotten too close. Here's a little trip note for non-compliant. So do you want to just explain a little bit, Benny, what kind of got you into starting Trip Note Pros, and then just what it really dives into and how you operate there?
Well, I had a couple private clients. One of those is actually a partner now, who's an amazing contest player. His name's Bob Trainer, and Bob was paying me a lot of money to trip for him individually, as well as a couple other guys. And one of my customers had suggested that I build out something a little bit to scale. And so I said, I don't want to do it because I can't protect it, and these files just get shared. And so he built something for me that was not shareable, and I gave it a swing. So here I am. That was about 4 years ago, and I'm still lacking sleep because it takes a lot of work to do it. So I spent a lot. Keelan's been kicking my butt because I've had I just moved to a new place in Carlsbad, and I've had some internet issues. So I've been getting up at 2:30 in the morning the last few weeks because things are moving slowly and it's taking a lot more time than it should, which is a drag. But these guys just came in yesterday and fixed everything, so I was able to bust these couple races out for you guys today.
There we go. Great timing. Yeah, thank you for getting this done. I really appreciate it, and we're going to take a little bit of a closer look. As you wanted to talk about non-compliant, who you have labeled as an upgrade, who I believe is one of your few upgrades in this field, along with a couple others that we'll get to in a moment here.
That race to me was ultra impressive for a couple of reasons. That wide trip into the first turn got flowed pretty wide, covered a lot of ground on that race. But I was listening to what you guys were talking about with Jason, and nobody brought it up, was that track was speed favoring on that day. So for non-compliant to just roll over the top and grind down, win impressively, deserves extra credit in my opinion. And then immersive, you guys were not really high on. I'm not either. I'm going to use the hate word. I hate immersive. If immersive wins, you might see me on the exit of Via de la Valle with a cardboard sign because I'll go broke. I absolutely hate immersive. Had just an absolute dream trip last time. Was 3 wide in that first turn, relaxed well, and then benefited the 2 fillies in front of her, who I don't think a whole lot of at all. They kind of knocked it out a little bit, took each other out, and then she kind of almost inherited the lead while being coaxed to do so. And that track I actually had as speed favoring, and she didn't leave the pack, which I'd like to see. Typically, speed favoring tracks have a few different things to kind of tip their hand that they're speed favoring tracks. The fractions are fast. You get kind of these fast fractions hold up is another one. And then you get these strung out fields. That finish at the wire was a lot closer than it should have been. She almost kind of plodded home to me. So she held sway and she did what she should have done, but not for me. You talked about the morning line. She's a little bit shorter. This is a great playing race, in my opinion, because I'm totally against immersive. Like if she makes the try, I'll lose probably. Yeah. So
we were just talking about Keeneland, and I mean, we had the whole first weekend, I think, almost as the dirt was very speed favoring, and it's evened out since then. But like you said, I mean, with the trip she got, I feel like she's supposed to win that race by open legs.
No, I think some of these others, had they had the same kind of trip, I think they would have won much easier. Yeah. We'll find out if we're right or wrong, but I'm willing to push a lot of chips into that pool.
Absolutely, yeah. I was pretty happy on immersive. I was there for the wedding when she got home in the slop up at Saratoga at a nice price of I want to say a bit close to 10-1, some way, shape, or form. So I was happy to bet her then, and I am not betting her since then. Didn't bet her in the what is that? The Alcibiades, and not betting her in the Juvenile Fillies either. Absolute play against for all the reasons that you both mentioned. Just has really just kind of had easy trips and hasn't like powered home, hasn't dominated by any means. And I think there's some that can step up here. Other two horses that you want to talk about, Benny, both kind of came out of that race as we move off of non-compliant into the Darley Alcibiades. One of those is Quick Kick, trained by Tom Amos, I believe ridden by Dylan Davis, who hopefully keeps that mount because obviously he's been on fire no matter what he's been on. He could be on a donkey in a grade 1 and he'd get him up in the try somehow. So what were your thoughts on a Quick Kick coming out of that race?
Jason touched on this trip a little bit. He's absolutely right. Runners on both sides kind of leaned in and bumped her. I had her losing 1 to 2 lengths in every potential position. She was kind of a joint last early, and she made a good little move during the middle stages of the race to work into the race, and then couldn't overcome that track bias. She finished well. She earned second money, which I thought was better than immersive. The one that's going to probably get the lion's share of my chips would be Quiet Side, who's also coming out of that same race. She actually was a little bit more forward early, but then just kind of got this relaxed ride by Louis. I think it was Louis, if I'm remembering this correctly. I think Saez rode her. But kind of got a relaxed ride and then got put into a bad spot by Quick Kick, who moved past her on the outside. And she was kind of targeting these in-between spots for the entire backstretch and then through the far turn as well. She was a little bit green when trying to tip out. She kind of had her head cocked. She didn't like where she was. You could see it in her gait. And then once she got into the clear, she also wanted to lean inward, and he didn't get a chance to really level her off. I think she has more speed than it shows. I think she's going to be on the improve. Like I said, she was a little bit green. And if she can get a more aggressive ride, I think she'll avoid those bad positions. I do think she has some hidden speed, which doesn't show up on paper.
Definitely, yeah. Came out of obviously a sprint in her debut where she was pretty forward in there. John Ortiz had an excellent Saratoga meeting, and then Quick Kick talking about Quick Kick. Yeah, I agree. Was Green coming down the lane? Sorry, those are very similar names. Quick Kick and Quiet Side. I get them mixed up easy. Coming out of the same race, they're finishing pretty close to each other. Obviously, every horse is in my head right now. I see on Trip Notes Pro, you gave both of those horses an upgrade. Coming out of there. And obviously you spoke about immersive kind of getting a downgrade. You spoke as to why, immersive got a downgrade coming out of there, kind of just plodded home, didn't power away when went with the speed favoring track. Meanwhile, Quick Kick and Quiet Side kind of had different trips, but were able to, make up a little bit of ground, especially talking about Quick Kick here. What are some things that kind of go into watching those replays where you're going to, what is going to be a bigger upgrade over the other? In terms of watching a race where you have multiple runners coming out?
Well, you just got to be a little bit intellectual about it. It's funny, people watch races. A lot of people that do trip work, I think they watch from kind of a macro level. They tend to watch like they have action in the race. So when you're watching and you've got action in a race, you're not staring at your horse the whole time, right? So you're trying to figure out what it is that's going on all around. So you scan the front, you scan the back. Where's my horse? Am I in a good spot? Am I in a bad spot? It's actually one of the things that I like to do when I'm tripping races is imagine if I had action in the race. Would I be happy with what's going on? And in tripping races, you have the luxury of hindsight. You've got pace that you can analyze. There's all kinds of great metrics out there to analyze pace. I use Timeform US by Milkowski 99% of the time. I think he does an amazing job. But we have that luxury, right? So I know what's going on in front in terms of pace. At least I feel very strongly about his numbers being accurate. So I stare at that one horse all the way around the track for every jump. And it is absolutely amazing what you can uncover when you stare at one horse rather than watch that race from kind of the macro flyover view where you're scanning. Because if you scan for 5 seconds, you might miss everything. You could miss a horse climbing, high-headed, high-kneed, cocking his head. People don't take the time to watch head-ons. I do. People don't take time to watch gallop outs. I'm huge on the gallop out. So I take time. Doesn't take a lot of time either to spend that extra 15 seconds to study what's going on post-race. So, I do it all. And you just have to be willing to not sleep. If I'm being honest, it takes me probably, God, you don't want to know. It takes me a long time to do one card, to do it the right way. It takes a lot of time to prep the cards as well, just analyzing pace. Everybody knows that pace makes the race. Everybody knows that. You'll hear it from anybody. Amateurs will say it. But how many people actually take the time to make notes about what the pace was in every race and then analyze the race that way? I don't think a whole lot of people do it. The fractions and the form, they're worthless. It's worthless information because they can totally lie to you. It's like I equate it to a golfer who's a 20 handicap and he buys the biggest bucket of balls that he can. He goes to the driving range. He just practices bad habits. He's just doing everything wrong. So I think you've got to be able to study the pace. You have the results to deal with. Memorize results, see where those horses are coming from. You get a good idea of pace and flow, and be intellectual about what you see when you stare at that one horse all the way around. I mentioned quiet side. It's not rocket science. Go watch the replay yourself with what I told you about the horse wanting to stay inward when he was getting or she was getting guided to the outside. She didn't want to run through that kickback. She had her head cocked to the side. She didn't want to get hit by it. And even when she made her way out there, she kind of wanted to lean inward a little bit. And that's sometimes a tell of horses that want to be forward and resist versus horses that want to run over the top of you. So I do think she'll be a little bit more forward come November 1st.
Awesome. Thank you for adding on that last part there about quiet side, because my follow-up was going to be when you see a horse, especially a 2-year-old, kind of get kickback for the first time. As you mentioned, the horse was kind of cocking her head off to the side, clearly didn't love the kickback. Is that something where maybe next time out they, accept it a little more? Is that something where that horse is just not going to like that kickback in the face, and that's going to be result in like a change of tactics from the rider or keeping a horse outside, etc.?
There are no secrets here. When you see it, it usually unfolds the way you think that it might the next time out. Trying to think who it was. Tappet Trice is a great example of that. So just a total mentally weak individual early in his career. Everybody loved him. And I said, this horse has zero chance in the Derby. Mm-hmm. Like, rip up every idea that you had of betting on this horse because this horse hates kickback. Happened one time, and Louis knew it. And he was driving this horse to the outside. He had to get this horse in the clear, obnoxiously climbing all the way around the track, and was talented enough to win. I believe it was the Tampa Bay Derby. I can't recall.
Yeah.
But was talented to win, kind of beat a weaker field, but running against better in the Kentucky Derby where there's just literally dirt flying everywhere. I mean, you're not going to find open air in that race unless you're forward. Horse like that. And so the question is, do you expect things to happen differently? I do. I think Saez will try and find more open air for this horse. The horse had speed. I expect that horse to be more forward and in the clear. And, post position draw is going to be key. I may not play the horse. If the horse is drawn inside, I may fade a little bit. I think I'll use on some level, maybe in some horizontals, because you never know how the race is going to pan out. But if the horse is drawn inside, it's a little bit of negative because I know the horse just doesn't like it. And targeting in between spots is terrible too. I've mentioned this a couple times on air at Del Mar. When you're walking out of the track and there's just people all around you, and it's just like compact, and you're like this cattle. It's like this cattle call when you're leaving. I hate it. I can't stand it. Now imagine running 40 miles an hour and competing. It's just it's a mess. So, they're creatures of habit, and I expect the same to happen. It may take a lot more time to develop some immunity to that, to gain that skill and to work through that. I don't expect it to happen in the next start right after that race.
Awesome.
I've made that walk back to the parking lot many a times, and I got to tell you, it's much easier to sit in that traffic when you've made some good bets and have some money in your pocket. And you have a bad day, and it's not as easy to sit behind all those people.
Absolutely, and they don't let you. You can't. Man, I've smuggled stuff out in the past. But, they make you pour everything out too, so it's like you got nothing in your hand to help you kind of ease the pain if you've lost. So you've got to win on your way out if it's going to be a decent walk.
I have one more real quick follow-up that I like that you said about the gallop out, because I love watching gallop outs. I think it's really important for especially the 2-year-olds and maiden races to see how they'll move forward. Stan, Nita, and Del Mar do a really good job of showing it, but what the heck do we need to do to get the rest of the country on board? Because I hate the little zoom in on the winner you can't see anyone else that's in the race.
Yeah, I'm not real big on nose hair, and for whatever reason they try and like get you the nose hair view, and I'm like, man, what is going on here, right? A lot of times they don't even. I mean, if I had like a fake Twitter account and I wanted to rail on people, it would just I wouldn't have any other time throughout the day, because there's so much wrong with just the production in horse racing. But I love gallop outs. It's such great information. It didn't work out yesterday, or maybe it could have been the day before. It could have been Friday or Saturday rather. But there was a horse that had a huge gallop out. One of the reasons why it is because the jockey was riding through the gallop out. And that's a tell, right? That's trainer intent. That's not coming from the jockey. It's coming from the trainer. They knew the horse wanted longer. So things like that, if you're not paying attention and spending the extra time, you're totally going to miss them. And everybody should be a gallop out person. I heard this question: do you believe in gallop outs? Well, I talked about the golf analogy. It's kind of the same with gallop outs. You really need to study what it is that you're looking for. And there's so many different dynamics that offer up good gallop outs. Turf races and synthetic races can race upside down more often. So you get more vanilla gallop outs when the paces are even and everyone has a lot of energy. That's big. Paces are just absolutely huge. You get a horse that'll leave the pack and he runs off by 20. And it's like, okay, well, take it with a grain of salt, because everyone else is slowing down. He was the lone closer in the race. I don't think people look at that a whole lot. Jockeys, certain jockeys let their horses gallop out more than others. We've got a couple in California. They literally stand up and they water ski a little bit. So that horse isn't really going to run through that. All it takes is that guy dipping back just a tiny bit, and that horse is held up a little bit. So there are all kinds of different things to look for. And I think people should, because they're absolutely tells that don't show up in any running line, and very few people do it. So, trip handicapping, in my estimation, is kind of the last frontier in terms of value. I think CAWs have got their arms around everything in terms of like statistics and analytics that can be baked into a price. I don't think gallop outs are in there. So if you want an edge, I mean, literally, if you were just to study those only and become a sniper and make plays based on what you see after the race, I'm pretty sure you'd do well. I think you'd actually be a winning player in a game where not very many people are winning.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great point. And I'm happy, Jackson, you brought up the gallop out. Obviously, with the channel being named that, we had to ask about the gallop out in some way, shape, or form. And then, Benny, for those that don't know, on Trip Note Pros, you have an excellent tutorial video about gallop outs. You let me know to, check that one out. So that was great. Provides a lot of valuable insight. We're going to pivot over into the, if I can, there we go. This is going into the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. We're talking about gaming right here. This is the trip note on gaming, and you gave him an upgrade for the gallop out. So in a dirt race that was 7 furlongs coming out of the Del Mar Futurity, Jackson, obviously you and I talked about our pain looking at gaming that day. But Benny, when you give a horse a plus for the gallop out in something like a dirt sprint, where they're kind of, being forward is it, and they're not run upside down typically, What kind of do you factor into account there, and what do you look for?
Well, he was holding firm through the lane. I'm trying to remember who it was that was trying to reach him. It's slipping my mind.
Street.
I'm sorry?
McKenzie Street. Yeah,
McKenzie Street. Thank you. So he was holding firm over McKenzie Street. And if you watch the two of them, they're literally kind of running evenly to the finish. And then he just kind of gets smaller and smaller to the rest of the field on the backstretch. This is pretty typical. This isn't an atypical gallop out for Bob Baffert, but it is noteworthy because it was strong. Some of his runners will run through a brick wall after the race. And he didn't have like the kind of velocity that I like to see, but he did do it with strong body language, which is one of the things I like to look for. In that video that you mentioned, Ryan, I talk about how I used to be in amazing shape and I could do all these push-ups. And at the end of this stretch of 100, I was really struggling. It's the same way with a gallop out. If you see a horse that's just kind of standing tall and he kind of still looks strong, and his ears are up, and he just kind of still looks like a bully, that's important to note. And he kind of did have, it wasn't like this amazing gallop out, but it was strong. And given that he hasn't run 2 turns yet, it's noteworthy. And I do think that he'll stretch just fine. And there's some speed in there for him as well. Some of the other runners that you had touched on with Jason, they do need to be forward. I don't think he needs to be forward. He went wire to wire on debut. I remember I actually interviewed Bob that day because the stakes race on the card, I believe, was like the 3rd race. It was a Calbred race, and he won the race. Getaway car, maybe. But I interviewed him after the race, and I wanted to get his reaction because I had heard that gaming was good, and I wanted to make a big bet. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to ask. So I asked him. I said, hey, we're a month away from the Futurity. You got a first-timer in gaming today. What do you think of him moving forward? And he kind of had this surprised look on his face. You can't, because I did watch that afterwards. I think he knew that he was special because he had a little twinkle there that I could see when I was standing right next to him within arm's length that maybe didn't show up on camera. So I did. I went ahead and I pushed. I made a big bet on him that day, which was great. But he went wire to wire that day. He broke well. He went straight to the front and he held. And then in start number 2, Flavian flew in. I broke my heart to hear you guys got off of him because he was only there probably for that one mount. Right?
That's exactly what I said.
Right?
Yep.
He doesn't ride a lot for Bob anyway. JJ usually gets the lion's share of his work. He did ride one other runner that day. But if Flavian Pratt's in town and you've got somebody live, I mean, you're getting on the phone, right? He only ran one other horse that day. He rode a Glatt runner who I also bet and I lost. I think something happened to that, by the way. I would look into that race and maybe keep an eye on that one because he was loaded at the top of the stretch and just kind of got flattened out. I think something happened. Maybe he bled. But he did not panic at all. He just let him. I think it was a learning experience, right? He went wire to wire on debut, and then he just let the field get away from him. And then he gradually gained down the backstretch. And he did it while inside. So to me, I'm big on jockey intent. I didn't write about it in this note because if I did things like that for every horse, I already write about 4,500 words a card. And I would literally jerk the wheel into oncoming traffic out of Del Mar. But one thing that I do pay attention to is start number 2, jockey intent. And Flavian had no intention of getting outside. He was drawn inside, and he let him gain at the rail. He could have moved outside into clear sailing, and I think it was just as much of an education as it was a showcase of his talent because he took kickback, he earned that open air into the far turn, and then he did what he should have done as he went off and won. But jockey intent for big as me is big for big as me. This isn't lack of sleep is big for me as well. I already forgot your question, Ryan.
Oh, it's okay. You touched on it a lot with gaming, and we were talking about the gallop out to start. But that led into something else about gaming, and you were talking about jockey intent, and Flavian definitely gave him an education there. Drew from the 2-hole in that last race, just kept him inside on the rail. He got some kickback, and that's really that's a move of confidence when you see Baffert, want to get those horses to rate. Because Getaway Car didn't get that those instructions. Getaway Car was told basically go straight to the front.
Yes.
Citizen Bull, I think, was just drawn wide that day. with Mike Smith aboard. So probably not much room for an education, but gaming kind of drew perfect going the 7 furlongs. You mentioned the strong gallop out, going 7 furlongs as a 2-year-old, galloping out with those ears pricked and looking, as you said, like a bully. Does that kind of hint to you that horse is going to excel going 2 turns for the first time?
I have no worries about him getting the distance at all. None. I feel strongly that Flavia will ride back and that he'll win. There's some speed in there. I think he's going to beat his East Avenue. I do. I've hammered that. I've hammered East Avenue both times. I heard from a little bird that he was extremely talented on debut. There was no reason I was going to bet against him in start number 2. But he did have things his own way both times. And as the famous Mike Tyson once said, everybody has a plan until you get punched in the mouth. East Avenue is going to have to take a couple punches early in this race. There's some other speed in there. Jonathan's Way has Rosario. We talked about jockey intent. If Rosario's in front, guess what? He has instructions to be there because that guy's a human anchor. He loves to come from off the pace. Jonathan's Way was ridden to the front last time. He's fast. I expect him to do more of the same. He's got speed. Citizen Bull, another Baffert runner. He's got speed. Getaway Car's got speed. Both Baffert runners. I can't imagine all Bafferts will be rating. If I've learned anything about Bob over the years, it's he's aggressive. I expect one of those two to absolutely send and try and compromise East Avenue. East Avenue wanted the front last time too. It could have been that Tyler G knew that the track was speed favoring and he wanted the front end because he rode into that first turn. He wanted the lead and got it, ran unopposed throughout. And he was impressive. Don't get me wrong. But he's not going to get that trip in the Breeders' Cup. He's just not. So he's got to ship. He's got to take a punch in the face, and he's got to keep on going. Certainly looks talented enough, but I think he's going to get overbet because he's done it easily and he's coasted. It doesn't look like he's taken that deep breath yet. So I expect that to show up on the tote, and I'm willing to take a shot with Gaming and Flavi, who I think I'm going to get a lot of hate mail here. I think he's the best jockey I've ever seen, and I've mentioned that a few times now. The guys, I've seen them all. I've seen the best jockey colony in the world. Back in the heyday of Southern California with Pinkai, McCarran, Stevens, Eddie D, Nakatani, P-Val, Toro, all of them. It was the best ever. I think Flavi is better than all of those in terms of just his collective toolbox. The guy's just amazing.
Yeah, I don't think, Jackson, you and I don't think we can really speak to, the heyday necessarily, but of jockeys that we look at and we see, Flavian always has the positioning. He clearly does his homework better than everybody else. One of the best closers, one of the best on the lead. He knows when to be aggressive. He knows when, he just knows how to read a race so well. It makes him so versatile, and he really has no weak spots when it comes to his game, whether that's dirt sprinting or going marathon distance on the turf. He's always somebody that you want to look for because he's going to make sure he gives the right trip. And if he has the horse underneath him, that's it.
Intellect is the most underrated skill. Everyone talks about what they see with certain guys and riding. But when you stare at one horse all the way around the track and you have a very good feel for intellect, I'm not going to throw anybody specifically under the bus for negatives, but it is amazing how many just horrific decisions are made on a track from riders. It's just mind-boggling. And Flavian rarely makes a mental mistake. Very, very rarely does he make a mental mistake.
Absolutely. Benny, thanks so much for joining us. Real quick before you go, can we get your most likely winner of these two races? And then can you let all the people know when the Breeders' Cup trip notes will be live on your website?
Thank you for that. I'll give you that 20 later. Non-compliant would probably be the most likely winner for me for one reason only, and that's because the two that I like that are coming out of that race in Kentucky, Immersive, Quick Kick, and Quiet Side. That race, is that the Alcibiades?
Yes.
Yes. Handicapping 101 says they're either all good or they're all bad. So if non-compliant's better than one of them, I think he'll beat both of them. So he'd probably be the most likely winner for me. And then as far as the Breeders' Cup cards go, I'm actually going to start doing these over the weekend. So hopefully by Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, that first card will be done. And then we'll jump in. Hopefully by the end of the following day, I'll have Saturday done. We'll see. I'm going to go buy some stock in Red Bull right now.
There we go. Yeah, stay awake, stay power through it. We got a couple more weeks in the Breeders' Cup, and then we finally kind of all got a little rest in between as we wrap up. But Benny, can't thank you enough for joining us. That was some excellent insight. Definitely, everybody that's watching, check out Trip Note Pros. The link is in the description. Awesome content, awesome details available down there. Helps your handicapping angles, provides cool insight. You don't even have to do the work. All you have to do is subscribe to the packages, because Benny here is lacking on sleep enough for all of us here. So he's doing all the work, getting all the notes in there. Thanks again for joining us today, Benny.
You got it, guys. Thanks for having me. Stay lazy.
Absolutely. I'll see you out at Del Mar. All right. That was Benny. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in and watching again. Yeah, Trip Notes is an awesome place to go and get some cool tools. We got our next guest coming in right now. He's been in the waiting room for a minute. I'm really excited to bring him on. Jackson, I know you are too. Good buddy of ours that I got the chance to meet at Del Mar this summer. That is Shane O'Neill. Shane, what's going on?
Ryan, Jackson, thanks so much for having me, guys.
Absolutely. Happy you could join us today. Going to talk some Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies, some Breeders' Cup Juvenile. But I think to start, I got to turn it over to Jackson because he has a question he's been dying to ask you.
Oh, yeah. So Ryan and I were in the paddock for the Del Mar Futurity, and we're talking about, this looks like a pretty good field. We're talking about gaming and Citizen
Brother
Bowl.
Tony.
But Brother Tony. But I turned to Ryan and I said, there's a Derby horse that we haven't talked about yet, and his name is Rank, because once that horse goes 2 turns, he's going to be really, really good. And I still feel good about that. I know he didn't run great in the Futurity, but I thought he ran really good the other day at San Anita when he didn't get any setup. They crawled on the front end, and he still came flying late. And so if that guy ever gets a setup and he goes a little bit further, he's a horse I like a lot.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jackson. And it's funny you guys say that, because I think I've heard you talk about that before on the show. I maybe mention it every show you guys do, that you started the Rank fan club, I think, and which Doug is very appreciative of, I must say. But it's funny because back in June or July, I know Doug said that Rank was one of his best 2-year-olds, one of the best colts in the barn, and I really think he still kind of thinks that way. I think that a lot of times in Southern California, we're so used to these 2-year-olds have to fire first time out, or we think that they don't have talent, mainly because there's so many Baffords that fire and they're all cranked up, ready to go first time out. But Doug's approach is different than Mr. Baffort's approach is, for sure. And so I'm still excited about Rank. And Doug told me today he's planning maiden race at Del Mar November 17th. So you heard it here first.
Put it in my calendar right now. I'm showing up that day, bringing some money. It'll take 6 to 5, 3 to 5. It doesn't matter. He's gonna win.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Shane. We've been dying to ask you about that one on air for quite some time now. I know Jackson has, ever since we saw you down at Del Mar. Rank, obviously superbly talented, ran great. We have Juvenile Fillies to talk about here. I want to first start off with a horse that you know well, is in your barn. That's So There She Was. What can you tell us about this one?
Yeah, I mean, she definitely, I would call it a distant third in the debutante at Del Mar. But she's a horse that she just worked over the weekend. It's on XPTV if anyone wants to watch it. But worked out of the gate, kind of hurried along a tad bit down the lane by Mr. Antonio Freyso, I believe, was on her. But she's another one that Doug and Steve Ronoploom, I believe, who purchased her at auction, were always very excited about. So she's going to be right now. The plan is she's running Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. She's pre-entered. Obviously, we'll talk about the field, but to me, the field's a very wide open race, and you're going to get a lot of fillies who are on the improve. And she's one that I think you could argue she's on the improve. She's got a lot of upside to her. So she's doing well. She just worked, I think, Saturday morning, I believe, and we're excited.
Awesome. That's great to hear. Best of luck, because it is a wide open field. She comes in pretty good form. You mentioned that third in the Del Mar debutante. Nothing to, be sad. That's a grade 1. So already grade 1 placed as a 2-year-old filly. That's excellent, as far as, being an eventual maybe broodmare or anything like that goes. Just moving on, that obviously leaves lots of room for improvement. And then getting to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies, it's probably going to come down a lot to the post draw. That's going to, it could eliminate a few going, I believe, a mile and a 16th for that race. There's some that could get caught wide coming out of there. That could kind of eliminate them. A lot of them only have kind of one way to go. And so there she was, as an always improving horse. A horse that maybe, a couple of us have been kind of against, but it's one that's kind of on your radar as one you'd like to talk about. So I'd love to hear your positive takes on this horse. And that is Immersive for Godolphin Brad Cox, ridden by should be Manny Franco. 3 for 3 to start the career. So obviously not too much, hasn't done too much wrong, but what do you like most about this horse?
Yeah, I think I can totally understand the position against her. She's never really been, at least her last two, the winning Alcibiades, winning the Spinaway, not that impressive, right? Just got the job done is how I saw it. But I think that those are the types of horses that interest me in the Breeders' Cup, because they're not going to take a ton of money. Well, they're not going to take as much money as they could. Well, I think when we talk about the Colts race, we'll talk about some horses that kind of had some easy wins. It may take a little too much money, but a horse like Immersive, every time she's been asked to do something new, she accomplishes. She gets the job done. So I kind of agree. I wasn't thrilled with any of her victories, but I just think she's a grinder. And again, I feel like now I'm talking against her more than I'm talking for her. But in the Alcibiades, I don't think she beat that much. I think it's comparisons. This field is coming up a little lighter than I thought. I think in the Alcibiades, the horse that finished second had just broke her maiden, and then the horse that finished third, she beat in the Spinaway, or in second in the Spinaway. So, I see what you guys are saying. It's not she doesn't have. To me, the reason I like her, and I think the reason why she'll be one of the favorites, is anyone that's been up against her on the East Coast, she's found a way to beat.
Mm-hmm. No, that's absolutely correct. She's just kind of found a way to get home, and sometimes that's all it takes. And we've seen before, even with the older fillies and mares in the distaff, that mile and a 16th or mile and an 8th for them, that last 16th can just be a grind. It can just be who wants to get home the most. We've seen it time and again with horses that, we know like the distance, older ones idiomatic, or in previous years, there's plenty of 2-year-olds where that last 16th, they're just going up and down, and it's just who wants it more. So could be a bit of a stagger fest home. But then, that also leaves the door open to some horses that might be, on the improve, might be able to pass some horses. And that's going to take me to another horse you wanted to talk about, and that's Vodka with a Twist. We spoke about it a little bit earlier, but trained by Phil D'Amato. I'd love to hear your take on this filly.
Yeah, this I was speaking with one of the part owners earlier today, actually, and he said very excited about her. She's obviously just got nosed out on a victory in the debutante at Del Mar, and like I was talking about earlier with Doug's horse, I think it was 9 lengths clear from the second horse, from Vodka with a Twist to So There She Was. She went a little wide in the far turn in the debutante, 4 wide, then kind of tucked into the rail. But I thought it was pretty mature and impressive the way she did it. Mind you, she may have been DQ'd if she did win. I don't know what the verdict is on that, but I know that the owner team there was sweating quite a bit for their grade 1 place. But yeah, she just got grinded down, I think, by Tenma, which kind of scares me, because Tenma was sort of a no-show in the Oakley visit at Santa Anita. So that kind of scares me a little bit. But I do think Vodka with a Twist, she's got a lot of form behind her. I think this will be her 6th start into the Juvenile Fillies. So Phil D'Amato is definitely a trainer that is, like I was talking about earlier, see it in SoCal all the time, where Bob Baffert trainees are so ready to go first time out. A lot of these other trainers, they don't train like that. They train to get their horses going. They need some starts to get underneath themselves. So a horse like that, that's already got 5 starts underneath her, kind of look forward to seeing her stretch out again at 2 turns and see what can happen. But yeah, again, not thrilled with the performance of the debutante, but I think there's plenty of upside here. And whether you think it was Freysu kind of leaning in on the turn, or maybe just some immaturity, if you want to argue it's immaturity on her around the turn, then there's definitely upside there.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great point. And then, yeah, you mentioned Tenma coming out and maybe disappointing a bit in the Oak Leaf, which used to have a different name, but I forget. Yeah, thank you. But yeah, came out and disappointed in there. I want to say she got an equipment change in there. I might be mistaken, but I know she added blinkers in one of the starts. I'd have to double check my notes. But maybe that was why Tenma was a no-show. It's not typically like a Baffert to, no show after a win like that, but maybe one of those 2-year-old, maybe that race just took it out because she really got into a match race with Vodka with the twist and they were battling down the lane. So it could have been something where, she's young, she's inexperienced. It could be just one of those bounce races and then comes back maybe a little stronger now.
Yeah, for sure. And a good point there she was very game down the lane. A lot of fillies kind of fold up and throw in the towel when they're past going down the stretch, especially 7/8 is kind of we always talk about horse racing. It's kind of the specialist distance, whatever you want to call it. But for a lot of horses, it's a grueling sprint distance or a grueling, in between distance. So pretty impressive, I thought, for her to battle back like that. Like you said, if it's a Staggerfest home, you want a horse that's going to try to fight for your money down the lane. She might be one of them.
Absolutely, yeah. Jackson, do you have anything to add here?
Just back on Immersive real quick. I mean, you said she's not super flashy, but you can't fault her for, she just gets into these good spots every single time. And you can say, oh, she had a perfect trip. But she's creating those perfect trips by being tactical enough to get to those spots. So I can't fault anyone who's going to take her. I wish she was a little bit better priced. I know we have her at 3-1 right now. That could change. But if she was like 6 or 7, I'd be all over her.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
Absolutely. Looking on the Breeders' Cup website and the odds presented by David Aragona, we actually don't have a morning line projection for So There She Was. So in the sense that this could be an improving filly that could maybe spring a bit of an upset, whether that's underneath or maybe even on top, really upset the apple cart there. I kind of like that because you got to be thinking at least 20-1 on the morning line and probably higher come post time if we don't even have, a projected morning line right now. And, third in a race like the debutante like that where you could still improve that. She still beat, a good few horses in that race. And then, just coming out, maybe getting around 2 turns is what she really wants to do. So you got to you got to enjoy the upside you're looking at there, or the potential upside, I should say.
For sure. Yeah. Yep.
Want to move on to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, where we have some fun horses to talk about. One of which that you mentioned that you'd like to speak about that we'll go ahead and do first is one that we haven't yet spoke about this evening. And that's probably going to be the horse that's got to be vying for favoritism with East Avenue most likely, and that is Chancer McPatrick, 3 for 3 to start the year, two-time Grade 1 winner in the Champagne and the Hopeful up at New York. What do you like about this horse? Because this horse has a huge closing kick, but comes from pretty far out of it.
Yeah, which that right there is scary with Del Mar, right? Because there's no guarantee that the dirt's going to set up at all for. I mean, the stat over the summer was crazy, especially the first half of the meet. I mean, we had a filly win going a mile that she just got to the front at like 20-1 or something. And she went wire to wire, and probably maybe a race that she wouldn't have won if she had to pass horses. So, it's going to be tough that aspect. But I got to think the connections are thinking into that. I got to think I think when you have a month leading up to a race, a trainer is going to change strategies a little bit when they know the track's playing a certain way and they know that's the race they're pointing towards. But yeah, I mean, great race in the Hopeful. Ran great, beat Ferocious, who ran second behind East Avenue, right? If I remember that right, in the future. Yeah, in the Claiborne Futurity at Keeneland. And I mean, obviously the connections of Ferocious have always been super high on him. Debuted as a 90-something buyer or something like that first time out. So, Chancer McPatrick, I think the good thing is I think that closing kick, no one's a genius to figure out that Del Mar, it's tough to win from off the pace. So I think that price will kind of be, the track, how the track's playing will be built into the price there. So you may get some better value than, I don't think it'll be a favorite for sure, not the favorite. But yeah, so interesting one for me. But even if he's a price, still a little scary for him to work out a trip and be able to make up ground.
Yeah, absolutely. The horse's running style that he's proven through 3 races is definitely a concern as far as, that just overall how dirt plays. It's hard to make up that much ground, even though he's done it impressively. It's funny that Chad Brown, no matter, dirt or turf, his runners just, the late closing kick is lethal. You have Sierra Leone, who's going to be running in the Classic. You have Domestic Product, the sprinter. He comes from out of it. You have these runners that he somehow gets this turn of foot out of them on the dirt, as well as on the turf. The turf, you kind of expect it because those races are run kind of upside down. But even on dirt, he manages to get these powerful, stretch runners that seem to come from the clouds. And, we've talked before about how, Sierra, or, people have talked, I guess, before how Sierra Leone is always compromised by the pace, yet he always seems to be right there at the finish. Given he lugged in for the first every start of his career. But with a horse like Chance McPatrick, all the talent in the world, out of McKinsey for the first crop sire, and he's already sired, I believe, 2 Grade 1 winners, not including Chance McPatrick. Although that might be mistaken. Maybe they were both Chance McPatrick. I'll have to double check that one. But either way, he's definitely gotten a couple graded stakes wins in his progeny already. So you got to love the McKinsey going 2 turns. And then, I wanted to touch on one more horse. That's going to be Jonathan's Way, that is trained by Phil Bauer, most likely going to be ridden by Joel Rosario in here. What did you like about this horse and the setup this horse might get in the Juvenile?
Yeah, well, definitely he's quick. That's for sure. And the time, I think 136 flat in the Iroquois, that he did all on his own. So that's pretty exciting. Now, watching this horse live in the Iroquois, I was thinking this has the trait. This smells like a Breeders' Cup Juvenile winner, and I still kind of think that. So right now, he's one of my top picks probably for the race. Now, and especially because he beat up on what I think was a well-regarded group. A Sandman was in that group who was really well-regarded out of his maiden race at Saratoga. And that, mind you, he finished up the track and hasn't raced back since. So maybe something happened there. But I think that was, and another horse that he beat, I don't have it written down, that is also running. I think in the Breeders' Cup they said, who won. He was second in the Ellis Park
Owen Almighty, I think.
Yes, you're right. Owen Almighty, yeah. So a decent group that I think he beat in the Iroquois now. He wasn't. I think he had a half length ahead of down the backstretch. That running style is prone to getting overbet, in my opinion. When you have these 2-year-olds that show a lot of speed and just don't stop, there's no guarantee he's going to get that setup in the Juvenile. He probably won't. And if he has to pass horses, you're betting on a horse that's going to be, probably 3-1, 7-2, somewhere around there. And you're betting off of an impressive win, but a win that, in my opinion, is not as good as it looks on paper.
I like that analysis for sure. The time was fast in the Iroquois there, but coming back, you got to wonder, a lot of these horses that haven't faced much adversity, whether that be Immersive or East Avenue or Jonathan's Way, a lot of easy forwardly placed trips. Given Jonathan's Way maybe a little more tactical, but still didn't face too much, in terms of a bunch of kickback in the face or having to alter course or anything like that. And that's part of the game when you get down to this level in the Breeders' Cup, is you're going to have some adversity. You're going to have to come out of, you're going to have that experience, be a mature horse. And taking a gamble or taking a risk on a horse handling that well for the first time is definitely something that I think most gamblers would play against in a scenario like this, where a horse that definitely extremely talented with Jonathan's Way, again, trained by Phil Bauer, but a lot of unknown in terms of what this horse could handle.
My one counter would be he broke dead last on debut, and he did pass the whole field. It was going 6 furlongs. He didn't beat anyone that day. It's a completely different story, passing the likes of Eastern Avenue and Gaming and whoever else. But he has overcome a little bit of adversity. But to your point again, if he's 3-1, do I really want to take that in a horse that hasn't proven he can pass legitimate horses yet? I don't know. It depends on the price come the day of.
It's very fair. One more horse we should talk about in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile is not entered quite yet, but is pre-entered according to one Doug O'Neill and one Shane O'Neill. That's Dr. Ruben M. coming off of a maiden score, getting a 74 buyer, I believe, at Santa Anita, going a mile. So already has a 2-turn experience. What are we thinking here with Dr. Ruben M?
Yeah, look, we're all Team O'Neill is now impacted by the Hot Rod Charlie effect, which I'll remind the audience. I think it was the 2021 Breeders' Cup Juvenile. We had a horse, Hot Rod Charlie, who I think on his either third or fourth try broke his maiden, first time going 2 turns at a mile. Ran in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, was I think 94-1 was the number, and it's like
might have lost you, Shane.
Breaking up there for a second.
You there?
I think so. Yeah, we can hear you. One sec here. Quick technical difficulties. It happens, but we're talking about Dr. Ruben M, trained by Doug O'Neill. Okay, I think Shane is back. Shane, can you hear us?
There we go. Yes, I got you.
Perfect. Okay. Sorry, you were saying Hot Rod Charlie effect going off at 94-1.
Yes, yeah. Hot Rod Charlie ran a great second, 94-1 the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. I believe it was 2021. And since then, when you have a horse that excels at 2 turns on the dirt, mind you, he ran second his first try. I believe it was second. First try going 2 turns in the dirt, came back and won. But our logic, Doug's logic is we think he's a horse that's much better 2 turns in the dirt. We're going to print her, take a look at the field. Why not? And and he's got some starts to back him up too. He's going to be ready to go. He's going to be ready to roll into the Juvenile. We think he's got talent. I mean, he beat Rank last time, and Rank's going to win the Santa Anita Derby next year.
Yes, he is.
Right.
Damn right.
Right. So he's already beaten some good horses, but no, it's definitely going to be a Hot Rod Charlie 94-1 shot, but you never know. You can't win unless you're in.
Well, to your point that you talked about earlier is, O'Neill's not really trying to win first time out. So they're constantly getting better and better and better and better. And Hot Rod Charlie is a perfect example. I think he lost his first 3 or 4 starts, I want to say, before he finally broke through. And even as a 3-year-old, he just got faster and faster and faster. So I can't blame him for taking a shot.
Absolutely. And I will say he got a rough go of it in the Derby, did Hot Rod Charlie. He got pinched back at the start. He got battered around. That was tough to watch because me and a bunch of my buddies had him because West Coast horse, you got to root for him. That was a lot of fun to watch. But Dr. Ruben M, definitely going to be another long shot. But you guys don't seem to be strangers to having long shots run huge races, as the next horse I'd like to talk about won the Pacific Classic. So I want to see the status on him. Of course, I'm talking about Mixto, owned by Calumet Farms. How's Mixto doing? How did he come out of the race, and what are we looking at for the next spot for him, if you happen to know?
He's doing great. He's been working well since he came out of the Classic. He didn't even need that much time off. I think Doug only took a week off with him, which usually when you know you're going to get 2 months before the next start, you take some more time. But Doug said no, he's ready to roll. So they got him back to the track pretty quick. He's doing well. Kyle Frey is a big fan of his. Edwin Maldonado was a big fan of his before, and he had unfortunately had to fly to Kentucky to ride over there. But we're super happy we got Kyle aboard again for the Classic. So he's going to be 30-1, probably a similar price from the Pacific Classic. But he's definitely a grinder that's getting better. He always shows up. In my opinion, if you look at his running lines, he shows up in these big races. Now he's never been win competitive until the Pacific Classic, but he's always running on down the lane. He always re-engages down the lane. So we know he likes Del Mar. I think both of his wins. I mean, he's eligible for second condition allowance, and we're going to run the Classic. But no, he's exciting for sure. He's doing great. I'm going to put a few bucks on him just because I didn't for the Pacific Classic, and
not even a $2 souvenir, huh?
No, I bet we all bet Katona. Doug will even admit we all bet Katona, and we looked down the stretch. We said, who is that on the outside?
I think I bet Katona that day too. So
yeah, Jackson, you and I were in the paddock for that race as well. We watched him walk around, and I mentioned to you, I saw Doug and somebody else I hadn't recognized or met, but was like, oh yeah, we like that one. And he gestures over to the 5, which was Katona that day. And I go over to Jackson, like, hey, they think Katona's going to run a big one. And then obviously I gave you a hard time. So did I think Danny at the DRF stand the next morning when I saw you for daybreak. We were giving you a hard time. And yeah, you just like, no one in the barn had it. It was just one of those, pick that race to really take a big step up, and got the job done at a huge number in a big way.
Yeah, it's a great reminder that a lot of people online and stuff think that we have an inside edge. We don't have any. We have no clue. I mean, Doug, we'll show up to the track, and if Doug has 2 in a race, he usually picks the wrong one. I mean, it's horse racing. None of us have any clue what we're doing. So
that's the best part of the game. Go ahead, Jackson.
I mean, if he can get forward again, if the track's playing the way it was in the summer, I don't think there's a ton of speed for a Breeders' Cup Classic field. So if he gets the same outside stocking trip, I mean, you never know what's going to happen in the top of the stretch.
Absolutely. Yeah. Want to ask? Yeah, absolutely. There's a shot. Want to ask you a couple questions. Then we got one more about one of your horses that's going to be running on Breeders' Cup weekend. As far as your filly, so there she was. Where would you hope to kind of see her draw when they draw the fields? Where do you think would kind of be best for her going the mile and a 16th?
Well, so mile 16th. The good thing is you have a little bit of a run up into the first turn at Delmar. Whereas if you're at, well, I don't know if Keeneland is. I don't know how many wires Keeneland has now. Probably 3 wires at this point. At least at Delmar, you got a little bit of a run up. So I'm not. I think the important thing is how big is the field going to be. If it's a full field, then obviously we don't want to be way outside. Obviously. But I definitely think that Doug's never a fan of the rail. So I would say just the classic answer, somewhere in the middle. Now, if it's a shorter field, though, I would like to be, I think we want to be on the outside. If they don't get a full field, which I don't know, I don't have the stats on past Juvenile Fillies. I would assume they're usually pretty full. But, if they only get 9, I would like to honestly to be on the outside there, just because I know that you're going to get plenty of action from the inside with the Baffert runners that they're going to try to fire off, right? So Doug's a big fan of just being able to sit right outside, maybe if we can get down to the rail, good, but you want to be able to be tactical in a race like that. You don't want to get stuck down at the rail and have the other horses decide where yours is going to be at.
Absolutely. That's great. Great insight there so there she was, an improving 2-year-old filly that'll run in the Juvenile Fillies. Next one is about Mixta, the horse you just talked about. Is it the same kind of situation for where you hope this horse could be drawn? Just kind of that outside stocking trip, or what are your thoughts on Mixta?
Yeah, kind of the same thing. I think it's less important, honestly, with the Classic, just because you got the whole stretch to work with before the first turn. So I'm not as concerned. A rail draw there would put us into trouble, I think, for sure, because he doesn't have the speed. He doesn't have the speed to match others and go up with it. So we kind of get buried in behind him, I think. So I definitely think I'm not afraid of an outside post in the Classic. And I think that's probably best for him, really, because it just gives Kyle the opportunity to see the race. And Kyle was the one who dictated what the plan was in the Pacific Classic. Doug just kind of said, Kyle, you got a plan in your head. You're the jockey. Do what you want to do. There was no instructions in the paddock for the Pacific Classic. So I think it's going to be kind of the same in the Breeders' Cup Classic. Hey, you looked at the race. You know what you're thinking. Play the trip. Play what it gives you. You got a weird long stretch to work with before the first turn. You got a pace scenario that with City of Troy and such is really, in my opinion, uncertain. I don't really know what to expect out of a European horse from the turf. And then of course Fierceness, and he's reversal. So I think it's going to be up to Kyle, and I think an outside post would be better in my opinion.
Yeah, nice. I love that analysis because the Breeders' Cup Classic is going to be a strange race. You can't imagine that City of Troy is going to be too far out of it because he has speed on turf, and turf to dirt speed typically translate, whereas dirt to turf doesn't. And then you have Arthur's Ride, who bounced pretty hard in the Jockey Club, but could come back and have a better effort
for that race.
I don't know about confirmed, but I think he's got an entry if he wants it.
Right.
So I think if he's, healthy and sound and good enough, then I can't imagine he wouldn't ship out here. You have horses. Yeah. Fierceness, as you mentioned, who's had kind of like a maturity form reversal type deal coming out here. He needs to be forward because he doesn't really like to be behind horses or have any adversity, so to speak. So yeah, it should be interesting. Yeah. You mentioned you have the full length of the stretch plus the shoot for the mile and a quarter, Breeders' Cup Classic. So that definitely gives you some maneuverability. So I can see how the outside post would be nice because, as you mentioned, Frey would be able to see the race, see how it develops, get a good spot, probably stay in the clear, hopefully get first run, keep maybe some more talented horses kind of pinned on the inside, hopefully gets the jump and has puts forth a good effort.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's definitely exciting. Whenever you have a free shot at the Breeders' Cup Classic, it'll be a fun day, that's for sure. No matter what happens, win, lose, or draw, it's a fun day.
Absolutely. Everything was paid for you to get in there. And Jackson, go ahead. It looked like you had something to say.
No, I was just going to ask if there's anyone else that you're looking forward to, either your horses or just the entire 2-day weekend that's running. Is there anyone specific you're really looking forward to running?
Well, honestly, for me, I just think the City of Detroit storyline is one of the coolest things we've had in American racing in a while, as far as having this kind of unknown Euro who is supposed to be the top of the game overseas on the turf. So I think that storyline is really cool. Besides that, I think Cogburn is. I was there. I got to fly out to Saratoga for the Belmont Day, and watching Cogburn and that effort was super cool. So that'll be. I think honestly, if Cogburn doesn't get unlucky during the race, I think it's his race to lose. It looks like. So that'll be a fun one to watch. And the 5/8 on the grass is always a crapshoot. I mean, there's so much weird stuff that can go on. So I'm excited for him. And then I think we're going to talk about Raging Torrent, but
yes, we are. Yes, we are. That was going to be my next one. I was happy we were talking about sprinters, so I can feed right into that. Obviously, we're going on to the dirt for this one. Yeah, Raging Torrent beat none other than the Chosen Vron last time out in the Pat O'Brien at Del Mar. Obviously, Chosen Vron was a winner of like 15 of his last 16 or whatever it was. Still a very, very talented Calbred, and all the respect to him. But Raging Torrent came in with a purpose. You could see the intent in the race, really brought it to him. And, finished that out on top, got into a duel with him down the lane and persevered. So how did he come out of that race? How's he doing? And Breeders' Cup Sprint coming in.
He came out of the race fantastic. I went to his stall door the next morning and he wouldn't say hi to me. He was buried in the feed tub. So which is super cool to see. So he came out of the race outstanding. Like you said, that was honestly one of my, we got so lucky this summer. I'm so fortunate to be able to just tag along with Doug in this sport, because with the Pacific Classic and Pat O'Brien, but the Pat O'Brien was way more special in my opinion, just because to beat a horse like the Chosen Vron, who is one of those horses that that gets a Wikipedia page when he retires, really. I mean, he's special. And all the credit in the world to Antonio Fresu. I mean, I wanted to kiss that guy after the race. I mean, seriously, he looked like he was beat 3 different times on the lane. And Antonio, by the way, never hit him once. I mean, it was all pure. It's my favorite example now of just why do racehorses do what they do? Well, look at the Raging Torrent. I mean, look at Raging Torrent. He's a horse that loves what he does. I mean, he just wants to win. So he's doing great going to the Breeders' Cup Sprint. He's a tricky horse because I'll never forget 2 weeks before the Pat O'Brien, he had a workout that we were a little confused on. He was very lethargic, just wasn't looking like his normal self. So I asked Doug, and Doug was really unsure, but still confident. He's like, no, I just had a bad morning. And thankfully, the next week he looked great, and he looked great. But if you kind of hear anything about some weird workouts or something like that, I would try to dismiss it, because he's a horse that sometimes doesn't feel great in the mornings. It's totally sound, mind you. He's feeling great, but just sometimes just doesn't. He wants to race in the afternoon. He doesn't care about these morning exercises just to put him on for some people. So he's doing great. We're really excited. And gosh, I think he's going to be probably 3rd choice, and he's got a legitimate chance. I think that's Doug's best chance at a Breeders' Cup this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree. Go ahead, Jackson.
Yeah, I had my biggest win bet of the Del Mar meet on Raging Torrent, so I wanted to kiss Fraisu after that race too. It was great. Any concern about the going back to 6 rather than 7 against the best in the country rather than just the chosen Bronc?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think no would be my immediate answer. I think 6 is just fine. But Doug has always thought that, and he's even said this after the race, he's always thought he's a 2-turn horse. And for a couple of weeks there, they kept on saying, Shane, we're thinking of a dirt mile. No, Doug, no, sprint.
Yeah.
So, Doug's always thought he's built bigger. He's built for 2 turns. I think I know that they want to get him to a 1-turn mile eventually. That's kind of and I think actually maybe at Churchill, he might have been, I forget, one of the earlier races this year. But to answer your question, I'm not concerned with it. I think he's got the ability and he's got the speed that it doesn't matter. But it definitely is interesting because I know Doug believes he's better probably a little longer.
Maybe like the Met Mile next year would be something to long-term goal. Yeah. After this weekend, yes.
After this one, I like it. Raging Torrent, I think that's a deeply competitive race. He's not a need the lead type, and you have a lot of need the lead horses. You have horses like Skelly that are coming in that as long as he gets the break right, he's gunning to the front. You have other horses, Federal Judge, who just ran earlier at Keeneland, I believe, first time blinkers, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe it was just the rail draw, but got sent out hard to the lead, and that was where he's had his best success in his career. Obviously, the Chosen Braun's pretty tactical. You have horses, you have Remake coming from Japan that I got to look a little more to. Go ahead, Jackson.
Did you mention Straight No Chaser? I think it's another
Straight No Chaser. Yes, thank you. That was the other one I was looking for. Where he is straight to the front. He doesn't chase, just like his name says, just goes straight to the front. So that's something where, are you hoping maybe sit kind of right behind that? Because Raging Torrent's got a lot of speed that seems to come pretty naturally to him. Cutting back to the 6 might bring him even, more into the race while not going sub 21 to the first quarter there. So is it something where you're just kind of hoping he sits, in that second flight of horses somewhere and is able to kind of get a pounce on those 2-3 front runners once they turn for home?
Yeah, for sure. I think there's no reason for us to be getting to the lead for all the reasons you said. There's plenty of horses in the race. Okay, all right, a quarter mile in this race, you need to have the front, and that's not going to be us. Thankfully, we have some more options than that for sure. So yeah, I think it's just, Antonio Fraisu is not going to get any instructions. He's one of the best riders on the West Coast, if not the best. The instructions will be find your spot and win. Those are the instructions. Those are Doug's favorite instructions. Is just win. Not a big deal.
I like it. Yeah, that's those are great instructions. And Fracy's a great closer, whether that's turf or dirt. He knows how to get him home. You mentioned against Chosen Braun, he didn't go to the whip once or the crop once. He was all just hands and heels, just pumping that horse home, and that's what you want to see. And honestly, I believe there's a few jockeys, whether that's Pratt, Rosario, and turf sprints, Fraisu coming home, where you just pump a horse with your arms, and you have the right form. And Mike Smith is another one that gets more out of the horse than hitting him with the crop. That one's really just kind of redirecting them. Some respond better, but I think, Fraisu proved that with Raging Torrent, he really just responded to getting ridden and getting motivated. And I think looking that other horse in the eye, it just really seemed to kind of light a fire, and he fought back and got the job done. So,
yeah, no, super exciting. It's a little scary going up against the best sprinters in the world, but you know what? They got to run the race for a reason, right? Here we go.
Absolutely.
And last race of the day now too. They switched it up. That's a long day.
Yeah.
A long day to wait.
Yeah. Get ready for those morning workouts and then stay until 7 p.m. Because you can have quite the day ahead of you in a couple weeks for Friday and Saturday at Breeders' Cup. Obviously, Jackson and I will both be down there. We hope to see you there, Shane. Thank you for joining us today. Before we go, obviously, Raging Torrent and Mixto and So There She Was are all going to romp. Do you have a top pick? Just overall on the day? I know, Jackson, you asked, horse you're most excited to see. Do you have a horse, most likely winner, maybe on the weekend?
Well, I think, like I mentioned, Cogburn, he's the definition to me of a most likely winner. But mind you, the price you're going to get. Which I don't know. Are you going to get 3 to 5, or are people going to kind of say you think lower than 3 to 5?
I'm
Okay.
thinking 2 to 5. Like I have him around 2 to 5 because I just
That's
I
not a
wish
good bet
race
then.
betting was a thing because you're going to know if he's going to win about 3 seconds out of the gate. It's
Mhm.
Golden Pal 2.0. If he breaks,
Yeah.
you're not going to beat
Yeah. So that's probably not a good educated bet to push on, on people in horse racing. You don't want to bet a 2 to 5 shot, but he's the one I'm most excited about. He's probably the most likely winner. Beyond that, I've always thought Saudi Crown's a really nice horse. He'll be running against Katona in the Dirt Mile for Doug as well. But no, Saudi Crown to me has always been a really nice one. If he's in form, I think he'll be a decent bet.
Awesome. Yeah, we didn't ask much about Katona. How's Katona doing leading into the Dirt Mile?
Doing well. I definitely think that's what he wants to do is the Dirt Mile. I think the best race of his career is the Pleasanton Mile a while back. It ran a decent number, I think a high 90s buyer, I want to say. So he's doing well. He's another one that's going to be a price, but Doug had really high aspirations for him, especially coming back in the San Diego Handicap where he ran so well at the layoff. We know he's got ability. Is he going to bring it on an international stage? We'll see, but definitely exciting, and he's doing well.
Nice. Jackson, anything else?
No, I think we covered it.
All right. I do have one more that I just thought of, and it was one that I had written down, and I kind of had scrolled past it. But horse that has won his last two, excuse me, that is, I believe, eligible for the Juvenile Turf Sprint, and that is, I believe, Pally Kitten. Yeah, Pally Kitten. Trained by you, won the Speakeasy last time out. Do you have any notes on this horse? And are we looking at the Juvenile Turf Sprint as the next start here?
Yeah, he was pre-entered. As far as I know, he was pre-entered. So yes, they are. That is the plan right now. That's a tricky race because I think it's usually I don't know if it's usually won by a Euro, but I'd have to think it's got European written all over it. I want to say last year. Oh, I forgot the name, but last year the race was won by a really talented horse.
Was it Mountain Bear? No, River Tiber and them when they were 3-year-olds, I think.
Last year the Euros went 1-2. I do know that.
They did. Yes, they went 1-2, but I do not remember which ones went 1-2.
One of them is now a very talented horse. So I want to say that race usually comes up tough and has a good field. So, with Pally Kitten, she not long ago she was running a maiden. I think it was 100,000 maiden claimer that she won or something like that, maiden 80 or something like that. So, it's exciting for sure. Definitely showed something new last time out, beating what was supposed to be a decent group of horses. Except I think the favorites were kind of up the track, if I remember correctly. At least the big favorite that shipped in. But no, we'll be pre-entered as far as I know. At last I talked to Doug, and another one that's doing well. And my dad and Steve Rothblum teamed up on to purchase that horse, and exciting, yeah.
Very cool. I'm looking forward to it. And also the horse we're looking for is Big Evs that won the Juvenile Turf Sprint last year. Entered this year in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. So that was an easy find. But again, Shane, thank you so much for all the insight. You guys are poised for a great weekend. Absolutely going to be entertaining, going to be fun, going to be rooting for you guys anytime you guys have an entrant. Obviously, we both hope to see you out at Del Mar. And thanks again for giving us the time tonight to talk some horses, talk some Breeders' Cup.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Have a great night.
Thanks, Shane.
Absolutely, you too. All right. Thank you again to Shane. Thank you to Benny Southstreet. Thank you to Jason Avila. Thank you, Jackson, as we are on, hour almost 3+ of doing this with the previous show going over the late pick 5 at Keeneland. Be sure to check that out if you haven't. Be sure to go into go into the description and get the Trip Notes Pros leading up to the Breeders' Cup. Those are really cool tools, as we mentioned, produced by Benny Southstreet out here on the West Coast. He's going to have all that stuff ready for you. Shane O'Neill with some awesome insight into Mixto, Raging Torrent. So there she was, Dr. Ruben M., Pally Kitten, and more. We have a lot to look forward to the Breeders' Cup. Tomorrow's show, we are going to be live again at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. Our guest tomorrow are going to be Matt Miller, the one and only. Can't wait to get him on. We're going to have a giveaway announcement tomorrow. That's a little bit of a teaser, so be sure to tune in. You're going to want to listen in live to get that info. Next up, we have Tony Kalo race caller for Turfway Park and Ellis. Very excited to get him in here. We're going to talk some really good races there. And then lastly, we have a new face over on the NYRA circuit. That's Kaylee Shapiro. We're going to have her join us. Excited to talk with her. The races that we are going to be going over are the Juvenile Turf Sprint, the Juvenile Fillies Turf, and the Juvenile Turf. So we are sticking on the turf tomorrow. We're all going, we're going grass. And then, we go Monday the following week to get into the draw, but we will cover that tomorrow. This has been Ryan and your co-host Jackson for Get Buck, the Breeders' Cup Special. Thank you for joining, and we will see you next time. Thank you.